everyone. Welcome to Lunchtime with Demons. I'm Abella Caress, and I'm here with Ryan Stone. Hi, Ryan. How exciting.
Hi, Bella. I'm very excited for today.
Me too, because we're talking about two of my literal favorite things. We're talking about demons and we're talking about BDSM.
Can't beat the two topics and the intersection of both of those.
We really, really can. And we're going to try to warm you up. And I don't know if this is consensual because
This is the time where you decide to continue and consent to further discussion, or you can please, feel free to skip this one and join us on the next one.
yeah. Yes, you thank you so much for hanging out for this 10 seconds. But if you choose to stay, get on St. Andrew's Cross, baby, because we're gonna go. We're going for it. We're strapping you in right now. But there's a good reason for it. It's because there is a fascinating overlap historically between BDSM culture and occult practices. And they have both been so incredibly misunderstood, both demoralized, both demonized, both almost like deliberately seen as sinful and othered by dominant religious practices and social systems that we're all a part of still till today. Till
Yeah.
today, even consensual kink today is illegal if something bad happens.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
you
It can.
better get ready to go to court. And same thing with a ritual that you're doing in occult work with a friend. Your
Yeah.
friend chooses to take their own life in a ritual and you have nothing to do with it and you had no idea they were doing that, but you're in that ritual with them. Unfortunately, you will answer for that. You will have to answer for that. um they're they are, when you look closely though at both of them throughout history, I think that you'll see a lot of patterns. You'll see a lot of similar um what is that word when they've been persecuted. There we go, persecutions.
Yeah.
And so we're going to talk about it.
I love it. I think that, like I said, the intersection of these two together has been fascinating throughout my life and practice because I have been involved for many years with both.
Me too. And I actually had just a really beautiful conversation with a friend who's a president of a very accredited kink dungeon here in New York. And we were at coffee, very vanilla coffee. And if you don't know what we mean when we say the word vanilla, that means like non kink related date. We were just hanging out at a coffee shop and chatting, although we were chatting all about kink. Um, and coming up on May 1st at a dungeon here in the Hudson Valley called Less Dead. And if you're interested in joining my class, you can go to lessdeadhudsonvalley.com and sign up to get vetted for the dungeon and come and take this class called Bottoms Up, where I'm going to teach you everything about the basics and the beginning to negotiation and understanding how to be empowered, and how to have a voice and articulate your wants and needs from a submissive position in kink and BDSM. And I'm very excited to teach this class. But I was actually with the president of an entirely different dungeon, and we were having coffee. And we were actually talking about how the crossover between the occult world and the witchcraft world and the kink world, how it doesn't happen because both worlds have been underground or demonized so bad that people are terrified to share what they do, how they practice, or their identity with one another, or, openly speak about these things with one another. So then the crossover doesn't happen. And yet the crossover is something that is so beautiful and could be bridged. If it could be bridged, could enrich one another's life so much, so much. Like he was sharing with me that recently they had like a gathering with a bunch of members from that particular dungeon, and they all whipped out their tarot cards and they were doing tarot. And I was like, stop, are you kidding me? Like, now I have to teach a tarot class because that's what I do professionally. And so it's like, for me, as someone who, I feel like I was put on this planet to be a bridge for many things, I recognize there's a lot of risk. I do. Don't get me wrong. I recognize I put myself at risk a lot, but I think it's just worth it. And if I have to do it for that, I will. And so here I am doing that for you guys. So hear me out. If you're very interested, don't be scared. I've got you. It's going to be a lot of fun. You don't have to know anything. We're going to do things like color and hang out. And I'm going to teach a class where it's going to be interactive and it's going to be a really safe space. And you're going to have goodies that you get to take home with you. And you're going to get to actually be inside of a dungeon. And it's very beautiful because Mistress Ada, who owns Less Dead, her dungeon is gorgeous. She's gorgeous, and so it's decorated like just so beautifully. So it's honestly the most femme and gorgeous, beautiful dungeon you can imagine. It's not dark and scary at all, which is honestly the way I teach in the occult, is not dark and scary. So it couldn't be more perfect. I mean, if you even look at my promo for the class, it's like pink and like has like flowers on it, so please don't be scared. Please join us. I think that anyone could benefit from learning how to have a voice when you feel scared. um but anyway, I digress. So we're going to talk about a little bit about the origins of BDSM in like the world. Since you know a lot about the origins of the occult, and we love talking about the origins of the occult, I think you might be surprised as to some of the documentation that we have in regards to the origins of BDSM. You know what I mean?
Fascinating stuff.
It really is. It really is. Power exchange and ritualized pain and erotic like images can be found, I mean, on literally like pottery and like art and like hand painted plates dating all the way back to ancient Mesopotamia, my friends. So, I don't know about you, but I know quite a bit about Mesopotamia as one of my favorite entities. Has a large history there. But specifically in regards to BDSM, uh, and in regards to power exchange and pain, when it comes to Inanna, and there were these rites of Inanna that within her temples involved sexual pain exchange, power exchange, and there are like I said, hand drawn paintings of this, and it was very obvious in the paintings that the person that was taking the the the, the bottom was processing the pain of this experience, and they were taking it in devotion to Inanna. And then also, we have devotees that were in submission to Enki. And Enki expected a lot of submission within his temples. And so there's a lot of drawings of people on their knees and being submissive in devotion to Enki as an offering, as a divine offering. And I find that to be very fascinating. And then if we want to just slightly touch on Greece, we have a lot of depictions of bondage and also domination and role playing. And this is where it gets kind of like fantastical too. I think we have lots of fun, erotic and erotica imagery that really popped up in ancient Greece. In Rome is where we start finding more implements. We start seeing more floggers and flogging. We start seeing more whips and whipping and more physical pain being administered from implements versus just sexual pain. And we're going to skip forward to the medieval era where we have this huge push of the Christian faith. And this is where we have that massive, massive, massive movement of self inflicted pain becoming sexualized. And that very like big wave of masochism and just like in the name of God beating yourself and really, really liking it, not knowing why you're liking it and not knowing how to process that. And that ritual like pain and sexual ecstasy kind of being something that alters the brain and alters that state of mind and not knowing how to process that and feeling a lot of shame and guilt and not knowing how to move that energy through the body. Whew. And yeah, that then you add all the whippings and the implements to that because by then, you know, we we've really embodied punishment.
I think some of it too with the Christianity kind of turning it very puritanical and, against it. And sin is where it starts to be, really ostracized. And I think also that's why it became somewhat more of self-infliction because of the demonization of it. And then still people having those needs and desires, whether they truly understood where its origins came from. I think it's one of those things that's kind of a bit of our primal side that we don't always know about until we tap into it.
Yeah. Hmm. Yep. And I mean, the term sadism itself doesn't actually arrive into the world until the 1700s with Marquis de Sade. And we have his like philosophical writings where he starts talking about domination and cruelty and power exchanges and like this sort of like oof this introduction to the philosophical perspective of a sadist and needing and wanting that wanting someone to get to that flood of emotions and wanting to be the one that and that gets them there and getting off on being able to do that. And so we have that introduction. And then later we have the response to the word sadism with masochism with Leopold introducing us to masochism with he, sort of the liberation aspect of surrender and the awaken it's almost like that power bottom, the awakening and the liberating mindset of the one who submits and the power that they hold within the consensual, the enthusiastic consensual submission. And these two sacred forces coming together and weaving themselves together in this like infinite um like a dance of the DS dance, the dominant and the submission dance is so beautiful and it's really really cool. And so we have this framework birthed, and yet we were dancing in that framework in early Mesopotamia, but we just didn't have language for it. And it's so cool how language is so important. That's actually something that I'm going to teach in the class is that a lot of the times when we negotiate scenes in BDSM, a top should ask you what is something that you would like to feel in this scene. And a lot of the times a bottom does not know what to feel or what they want to feel because they have a disconnect between their mind and their body. And so I'm creating a sensation wheel based on feelings, emotions, and implements. And it's taking me an eternity to create this wheel. So y'all better be grateful. I'm also going to have it laminated so that way it can stay safely in your little BDSM kit. If it gets lube on it, it won't get hurt. And that way you can pull it out if you're negotiating with the top and you can properly articulate. Oh, let me repeat myself. You can properly articulate what are things that you want to feel in a scene. But its language is really important. And so we kind of got introduced finally to what it is we were feeling philosophically, mentally, psychologically when we engage in these behaviors and we like them and we want them and we actually can observe these behaviors without shame and without guilt. And when we do that, we break through social taboos and we feel liberation. And it's incredible. It's incredible what the evolution that can happen psychologically of oneself when you do that.
Yeah, I agree. I think the self-liberation that can come from this sort of work that it allows you to be viscerally in your own body that what can be so eye-opening for yourself about like freedom of it, which is kind of the irony, which I love, is that, bondage giving you freedom.
I know. I know. And I think it's just like working with demons. It's just like the occult where people are scared at first because they don't understand. You're seeing everything through this Christian lens or this typical like societal norm lens, this like normal lens, right? This normie lens, Christian lens. Well, guess what? You have that too on the BDSM side, on the kink side. Let's just say kink because um like not everything is BDSM in the kink world. So you have everything on in this side of the world, and you're seeing it through a vanilla lens. You're seeing it through a lens in which this is just wrong. And until you actually break that lens and see it for what it truly is and what is happening in that world, you're going to judge it. And so it's fascinating to me when I meet people who work with infernals who are occultists that are scared of the kink world. And I'm like, ooh, interesting. Hey, you want to break through that barrier too? Because I'm happy to push you through it. Like, I'll put you through any barrier, baby. Like, let's do it.
And that being another aspect of both worlds is that you're constantly looking for those barriers that have been put up in your ability to expand and learning to move through those. And with more success and comfortability with it, it becomes a fun process.
Exactly. Speaking of process, let's talk about the parallels because there's a lot of parallels in the process of being in the kink world and the process of starting your practice in the occult. I'd love to start with negotiation.
Yeah, the ritualization of both, I think, is fairly fascinating and how they both have their ritual and base of foundational work that comes with growing in it.
Yeah, yeah. Because whether you engage in kink at like an actual community dungeon or you engage privately in like your own personal life, you are still going to have to engage in a form of negotiation if it's going to be ethical.
Yeah.
If you meet someone that does not want to engage in a form of negotiation, run. It is a huge red flag. Say, my coach Bella said no. And if you have a problem with that, here's her email. And you can tell him to email me. I'm a switch. And so I'll go real dom on him real fast, or her, or them, and I'll take care of them. You are not allowed to. I'm immediately topping everyone here. You're not allowed to play with someone that will not negotiate with you because your voice deserves to be heard. Your wants and your needs deserve to be uh, they it's your body. It's your autonomy. This is this is your life. And if it is not going to be at the forefront of this experience, then this experience ends before it starts. Does that sound familiar to anyone here? Because let's remove kink from this. Does that sound like deity work to you? Because it should.
Yeah.
It should sound exactly the same. Now let me repeat it, and I want you to switch your brain to deity work. When you start working with a god, you should be heard, and there should be a negotiation process where when you're deciding how you're going to work with them, what you're going to work on, you should be able to communicate your needs, your wants and desires, who you are, what they expect, what you expect. These things should be exchanged between both of you. And if it is not, you should not work with that God. And if that God has a problem with that, you can give him my email, her or them, my email, and I'll top them too. I don't mind. So, very clearly, these two things have a huge parallel. Negotiation is a part of life. When you are a sovereign being, you should be negotiating your wants, needs, and desires no matter what. When you get into any sort of agreement that involves your body, mind, and spirit, and statement.
I've had that happen where I met a woman that didn't want to go through the negotiation process. She just simply wanted me to dominate her. And that was not for me. It was not for
Yeah,
me. I was like, maybe you've played with other people that are like that, but that's not how this works for me. And just wouldn't.
good for you. That's a huge thing that I'm going to talk about as well in my class is that tops are not vending machines. You don't get to just tell them do what you want to me because you're a bottom. You don't get to just say like, well, I don't know what I want, so I just want to be dominated. So then that means you get to just do whatever you want to me, leaving ultimately all the responsibility on another person, and then that person becomes accountable when they do something and you don't like it. You know what I mean? Because you were not capable of handling negotiation. Again, does this sound familiar? Because if you're working with a god and you're not capable of articulating the things that you want to work on, and then that god comes into your life and you turn around and you're like, King Belial is a wrecking ball. He ruined my life, but you didn't articulate the things that you wanted to work on. And he saw the ways in which you have not progressed over the last 3 years because you've been repeating the same fucking pattern over and over and over. And he decides to break it because he's tired of watching you self sabotage. And then you get mad because he came in like a wrecking ball because you didn't want to have a negotiation. Do you see the parallel? I'm going to keep pointing it out because it's blatant, it's loud,
It was very obvious
it's
when you start
very
to see
obvious.
it. I see it in these conversations all the time, especially when things like that arise, where I'm like, did you set, boundaries for yourself with them?
Yeah. Yes. Yes. And it's hard for me sometimes because I'm like, I do have a leg up because I've been in kink for so long. I've been in the kink scene since my early 20s. I'm about to turn 40. My first time at a dungeon, I think I was 18? No, 19. No, I was 19 and I was about to turn 20. It was August, my 20th birthday, August. I went to my first dungeon in New York City. So I'm about to turn 40 and I've been on and off in the kink scene, both like for fun and lifestyle purposes and also professionally, and very much currently very active in the scene. So I do have a higher vantage point in regards to these things like negotiation. So I see these pitfalls. And so when working with the divine, I am very communicative. But I really recently, especially building out my class, because this is a monster, this class. Um, Especially doing that, it dawned on me that I have to bridge this gap with my students and with the deity work community because you're missing this is a huge pitfall is just not being able to articulate your own boundaries because you don't know what it is you need. Probably because you were never taught to prioritize yourself.
Yeah, that becomes such an integral part of it. It's
It
interesting how that
does.
kind of happens. Like for me, I kind of fell into the kink world. I was trying to date this woman, and she was probably about 10 years older than me. I think I was like 27, 28.
Always an older woman.
And she was a submissive. And I think she innately saw my abilities as just a dominant person in general. And I think that was part of the attraction for her. And then, so I learned BDSM from her as a submissive, from her teaching me through her lens, which am so grateful that that was my first experience of learning to become a dominant through a submissive that had a tremendous amount of experience because she had already been doing it like 15 years or something like that at that point. So to have that kind of like starting point for me was wonderful.
Oh, that's amazing. So then, yeah, so then you carry that into occult work, and you do definitely have that sort of shift on communication.
Yeah, it changes it, like I said, dramatically. I think it gives you those rituals and protocols that are already innately a part of it that
Hmm.
correlate to each other.
Yeah, yeah. Because once you, yeah, yeah, you're right. And so those rituals, though, they don't just end with negotiation, because then you have scene set up and scene in kink. So say you negotiate, you sit there, you're negotiating, everything sounds great, you're ready to go, you're ready to do your scene. You then have to set up the scene. And that's very much like setting up your altar. You have to consider both parties. What are you doing? Where are you doing it? What are the implements that you're doing, that you're using? And why are you using them? And are you both on an agreement of what you're using and what you're doing? And there is no negotiation mid scene. That doesn't happen. That's a rookie mistake. We don't do that. So it makes me think, I think about that a lot. When I say I'm going to do something with Lucifer, and I say, okay, for the next 2 weeks, I'm committed to this thing with you, I don't negotiate midweek. I'm not like, Lucifer, this is really hard. I think I'm going to take a break. Nope. I do it. I finish it out. There's no midweek negotiation. None. None. We set the scene. I said what I said. He said what he said. I know his expectations. I'm going to follow through. And it can be tough, but it's honestly, if you follow that one little rule, if you blend those worlds just a little bit right there, I can assure you it's the healthier way of going about any sort of exchange with the divine or with yourself or with another fucking human. Whether you're doing kink or not. If you're in a vanilla situation, if I'm like, Ryan, we're going to do our podcast tomorrow at 10, and you text me and you're like, Bella, are we still on for tomorrow at 10? I can respond to you and say, yes, we're still on for tomorrow at 10. Like, it's really simple. If something comes up, I need to say to you, like, hey, something came up. I'm sorry. I'm just really not feeling good. I need to be able to communicate those things. I can't just say to you, like, I can't just not show up and then be like, my bad. I mean, unless something like really tragic happens, obviously, but like, I just think that like we just need to be considerate of each other and the energy in which we are exchanging, because energy is being exchanged. It's not always a power exchange the way it is with a DS relationship or an MS relationship, where DS is dominant submissive or MS is master slave. But with deity work, it is always an exchange. So there's always an energy exchange, but it's not always a power exchange.
And the level of communication that's needed and required to do this, I think, is kind of what you're getting at, that transitions and is can become a part of all of your life and all of your interactions with other people. And it made me so more communicative with the way that I work and talk to people, especially when it comes to relationships. And that made me, I think, such a better person in a relationship with people just from learning these protocols and knowing that I need those reciprocations as a part of my communications. I'm not talking at people. I'm talking with you to understand what you are wanting, what you're needing, and then feeling that back, and then that back and forth exchange in the way that you're communicating, and then that grows into the other aspects of things.
Yep. I will never forget ever a job interview where I was having I was interviewing for a bartending position and they were asking me a lot of questions. It was like a really hard interview and I don't know why, but they were acting like I was interviewing for like a fucking job at NASA, okay? And I was literally interviewing for a bartending position in Los Angeles and they were like, "Wow, like you really communicate really well." And they were like, where'd you learn that?" And I had this flashback. I had this flashback of having my ass fucking beat by my dom for not communicating properly before a scene. Um, because I was in training as his submissive and he was just one of the most incredible dominants and I'm so grateful that I got to learn from him. And I remember him grabbing my face and he was holding my chin in his hands and I was crying. This sounds so bad. And he kissed my tears and he said, "You'll thank me for this one day." And he like turned my face again and I had that flashback in that moment and then I was like, "A professor at university." He was really really he was a really good communicator. I just remember I just,
You make me
just
cry.
I, like I truly like just lied, fully lied. Um,
Fair.
and I hope that that person's listening to this podcast. I lied to you. But I what do I say? Like,
Fair. Fair.
you know, like what the fuck do you say? Like, you know, it's hilarious because like I was never physically punished as a child ever, not once. I've never been spanked a day in my life by my parents. Never. I was just emotionally abused. But my parents don't listen to my podcast, so it's fine. Um, but not physically abused. And I do see spanking children as physical abuse. So that I was not physically
I was
abused by,
spanked. I
yeah,
got to a point where I would not give an ounce of um, any sort of anything. I wouldn't make a sound or anything just to take away any like idea of success from spanking me. That's how that if you want to understand little Ryan, that was me at like 8.
that's how you know spanking children is abuse. The fact that you psychologically knew that they were getting something from it and you shut down response.
So I stole it from them and they stopped, funny
Uh,
enough, because they
Good.
had no power, or it took away the power, funny enough, from
Yeah,
the idea that it was discipline when they couldn't discipline me with it.
exactly. Exactly. Your brain should not have to, when you don't have a fully formed frontal cortex, you should not have to process that type of emotion or that type of response. And I'll die on this hill that beating children is still beating children. Come at me for it. I don't care. But anyway, so no, I was not hit as a child. So my first spanking, I was a fully fledged adult. Um, and yeah, so that's how I learned how to communicate. And it just made me laugh because I truly did not know how to answer that question. But in truth, it really was my time in the kink world and BDSM scenes that I learned how to communicate properly. And I was held accountable every single fucking time I did not communicate properly. And also rewarded every time I did. And it was, you know, I really learned a lot. And so now it's like a part of who I am. I communicate, and I when I'm listening to you, I'm listening to you. When I ask you questions, I want to know what you're thinking and feeling, and I'm genuinely asking, because I'm used to there being some sort of risk to what I'm asking and why I'm asking, because I do play with people and I do, scenes with people, and I know that there's risk. I mean, there's very literally in the scene, there are acronyms that protect us in the kink scene, um, such as like RACK, RACK, which stands for risk aware consensual kink. And it literally means that, like, when I am in this space, did you see my cat try to jump up and he totally missed? Brutus, you cutie. It literally means that, like, there is a risk being in this space, there's a risk. And I'm aware of it. I'm aware that being in this space means I can get hurt. Being in this space means that my identity could be released. I could be blackmailed. I could be seen. I could be exposed to something or someone. And I'm aware of it, and it's consensual. I'm consenting to be here, and I'm involving myself in kink in this way. And then earlier there was another acronym that was SSC, which is safe, sane, consensual. And I bring up these two acronyms because I do think that they could both be applied to deity work, because your deity
Completely.
work should be safe, your deity work should be sane, and everything you do in deity work should be consensual. And if you approach deity work through enthusiastic consent, it's incredible. And if you approach deity work knowing that there is risk, that your life will change, your identity will change if you are co evolving and there is alchemy involved. If you are aware that there is risk and you are consenting to it, both of these acronyms apply.
Completely. I agree. This is another area, like I said, where the crossover to me is really validating and helpful.
Yeah, hugely helpful. Huge. Um, well, we've talked a lot about like the history of BDSM. We talked a lot about, oh my God, my cat is on one today.
He's been running around in the background the whole time.
Do you hear him when he jumps off my desk? Can you
No,
see
you
it?
don't hear it.
You don't?
No,
I
you
wish
just
you
see it.
I wish you could, because it's like the heaviest thud.
He's a big boy, so I'm not surprised. He's thick.
He's thick. He weighs like 20 pounds. He's a big cat.
It's one thing I love about him. He's just like a monster.
He really is. You know what's funny? This morning I was laying in my bed and I had just woken up, and I opened my eyes, and he as soon as I wake up and like even remotely stir, he like immediately gets up and like runs over to me to greet me. And I had this weird moment where I was like, Lucifer, are you like energetically coming through Brutus in the morning? And when I had that thought, Brutus walked right over to my face and started licking my cheek. He's never done that before. And it was really sweet. And I was just like, at this moment, I was like, it's really beautiful. Thank you. I love you. It was really, really beautiful. And I was very grateful. And then my cat ran off the bed and did something stupid. So I know that it was temporary, but
That was it. It's not at all. It's not at all the topic.
no, not an all the time thing, but definitely like an energetic current for just a moment. Um, like I swear Lucifer every so often will like use Brutus's energy for just a second to check on me through his own eyes or through the physical in some way. Like this random hawk that just like flew at my window the other day and then flew away. And I was like, hello, Lucifer. My goodness. Um,
I
yeah,
definitely see Lucifer with a lot of hawks for me as
yeah,
well.
yeah, for sure. So we talk a lot about the history. We talk a lot about like the crossover. I would love to know a little bit more about like your involvement in the BDSM world and kink world, and whatever you're comfortable sharing,
Yeah,
obviously.
sure, sure. So yeah, like I was kind of saying before, my introduction was kind of through that woman, and we were together for a couple of years, and because of having such an amazing relationship with them, and growing in that idea, I was hooked is probably the best way to say it, and so it became very much a focus and part of my life going through there, and so most of my dating through my 30s were with women that wanted to, be submissive as a relationship for me. And so I had probably two or three that we lived together and had like, 24/7 um, dynamics that we, lived and worked through. And um, much of it being kind of like fully designed in the way that like the entire daily life of somebody is your responsibility. I think even probably to a degree that most maybe not even fully understand. But living that I think was really um, tumultuous for me in the way that it helped me really understand people. The irony was is taking control of somebody else's life will really put a mirror up to how you see yourself in your life and how you show up. Because now not only do you have the responsibility of yourself and how you do things, you have the responsibility of somebody else and how they're doing, their life. Because in the 24/7 aspect of it, it's every day waking what's being done, what's, required. So there's this extra level of like, oh, I'm not just checking off the things I need to do today. I need to check off all the things that I need to have assigned to make sure that are being done and taken care of, which, at some point it sounds like work. It it's probably a little bit of work in the beginning when you're first establishing those kind of things. But for me, it became something that was such a beautiful flow of dynamic. And then the way that we grew together, because it's kind of like in deity work where, the deities are challenging you daily to grow in these certain ways. That was much of the things that we were doing was, you know, one of my submissives had a lot of like social anxieties, couldn't even really go to the store on her own. And so developing those things to make her feel safe in going with me and then giving her safe words to acknowledge that she was having too much of a breakdown in the middle of it without having to like come out completely and break down and creating those sorts of things so that over time and experience we could change this for her to the point where when we separated at that point that she was such a different person in terms of what her abilities were in terms of just being out in the world and exploring on her own and feeling comfortable. And it was amazing to me the transformation for herself in that time frame.
Yeah. Wow. What is it like for you now, like not being in a dynamic and having stepped away from the scene for a little while?
I even to this day I still do some teaching and take on like non-partner submissives that are either looking for teaching or training and just some of that. So I don't currently have anybody, but often in and out I have either people that I've known before that come back and are just like because one of the things I think that happens for submissives that I think is heartbreaking somewhat is that when they're without a dominant, there's a huge lacking for them in their life. And so I've seen this kind of as a problematic thing. So many of the submissives that I've had in the past or friends that I've teached or coached, I have kind of an open door policy that if they're without and they need some help in between, having a dominant or whatnot to provide some of those like services, if you will, that are non, sexual or partner, but still giving them that feeling of comfortability so that they don't rush out and just find somebody that's maybe not as fitting for them.
That's fascinating. It's almost like you're because I've also seen this with a lot of est leaning types um uh of of bottoms. When someone leans sub and they're not at a place where they feel self-empowerment in their submission, they do lean um they want to lean on a D. They want to lean on a top. And that's sort of something that I also have seen and really want to help educate bottoms on how to not end up in that place. And I think that it's actually really sweet what you're doing, because unfortunately people do get there, and like you said, they will run. They'll run to a giant red flag just to have someone, you
Fill that
know,
need.
throw
Yeah.
a collar on their neck and be like, "Yeah, I'm owned. I feel better now, even though I'm now in a really toxic situation." Um, so I think what you're doing is you're kind of placing yourself as like a, what is that called? Almost like a sentinel. Was it like a sentinel or whatever, before a toxic dom, being like, "Hold, I'm here. Let me step in. I'm going to educate you on how to feel empowered by yourself while topping you, while not permanently topping you and or collaring you, and then I'm going to send you on your merry way so you don't fall into a pitfall with a toxic D." Um, a toxic D type. Um, that's actually really clever. Um,
Yeah, when I was really involved with the scene and I witnessed it from many, and so I just saw it as a something that I saw as a need. And like I said, I just didn't think that there was maybe a better way to necessarily negotiate it or to help do it otherwise. But then I do think that in doing that for them, it does kind of help them see, I think that it the things that they're needing for themselves to kind of be even more present in what they're looking for as well. So I just think it's one of those aspects of the culture that just kind of needs that extra like care, you know?
yeah, I mean, then there's a flip side to what I'm saying too, because I just had this thought. Well, then there's also pro doming, which there's nothing wrong with that either, which is just saying there's nothing wrong with anything, but just kind of saying like, "Hey, I'm open to, if you want to be, if you want to feel submissive today, that I can do that for you. I can make you feel that way and fill that cup for you, and then our exchange is over. Our exchange is temporary, and I make you feel that way, and then it's over, and you get that release and you get that flood of endorphins, and I kind of close this container once we're done with that exchange." Um, and that's there, that's also something that, exists and is a way to still have these exchanges. What is happening? There's a giant messenger bee that just, hi Belial, that just like came to my window and was like poking out my window.
We're all like, we like today's conversation.
I know.
Just
I'm like, hi guys.
Lucifer's candle has been going wild. I don't know
I
if you can hear it, but
Yeah, I know. I know. I know. Because I'm very much an S to his D, and I feel like he's like, I'm here for it. I love this conversation. Let's just keep talking about it. Um, no, I love that. I love hearing this from you, because I know that that was something that you and I bonded over pretty early on, was our
yeah.
connection to the kink world, and we were both like, "Shh, don't tell anyone." And then over the years, I'm glad that we've kind of come to a place where we're like, "Fuck it, like let's be more open about it. It's who we are. It's a part of who we are. It's a if we're so comfortable with sharing who we are as occultists, like we shouldn't be afraid to share who we are as, as kinky people as well."
Yeah, I definitely, I think I've just gotten to the place in life where it's like, this is who I am. Anybody that dislikes that, please and thank you, don't like me.
Same, same. Well, and also like looking at my projects, I had this thought the other day, because I was like, I'm almost finished writing my book Numos, and I'm like looking at my book Numos, I'm looking at my TV shows, I'm looking at my films, I'm looking at my other books, and I'm going, oh my God, everything I write and everything I do is so fucked, like just like dense with BDSM. And I'm like, if I am not transparent about my life in BDSM, people are going to read this and go, "What the fuck happened to this girl?" Like, what the fuck happened? And they're just going to think I have the most twisted mind. Little are they going to really recognize is that like, "Oh, hey, no, I have a lot of experience in this world." Um and it deserves to be seen in a really beautiful light, and that's my goal, is to always take something that is framed in a really dark and immoral and nasty light, and offer it a new container that is more uh, in a new container. I'll just say that, just to
A new
offer a
perspective,
new
if you will.
perspective.
And I think that that's the part, is that people do view things from a very specific perspective and don't often stretch beyond that to give it any other viewpoints to see. And much in the way that I just try to put myself in other people's shoes, I think it's important to kind of see why maybe somebody else might find that, fun or interesting or attractive, even if it's not your cup of tea. I think it's just the way that life can be enjoyed and understood, how other people can enjoy aspects of life.
Exactly. Exactly. I mean, we're all just here trying to like do the best we can and trying to challenge ourselves and evolve and move energy through the body. And that's exactly what you're doing in both of these situations. I mean, I just did a scene the other night. I did an incredible electro play scene, and I've played with electro. I've done electro play before. And this was my first time doing electro play at like full capacity, like like almost, I think it was almost full. And I highly doubt that the top I play with is listening, but if he is listening, he might send me a text and correct me and be like, it was not full, but it might have been full. I think it was though. Um, and he used multiple implements connected to the the thing. I can't think of the name of it right now. And the worst one was the pinwheel. And I love a pinwheel, but when it's connected to electricity. And my body responded in a way I've never felt before, and I've been moving pain through my body for many years when it comes to play, and it comes to BDSM, and even the gods that I work with, like, I have this type of power exchange with them, and they're always in my head when I'm doing a scene. They're always a part of scene negotiation. They're always a part of how the scene goes. They're always a part of me moving the pain. I alchemize the pain and transmute the pain, and I use the pain towards my manifestation goals and work. Like, I am always doing witchcraft at every single point of my life. I am always, always, always a witch that never turns off. And I was literally on the table. I don't know how much detail everybody wants, but I was literally like in this scene, very grateful for a ball gag at this point. Okay. And my whole body, like, just the moment it touched me, my whole body just writhed in pain, and my muscles were twitching, and it was excruciating. And I had Lucifer and Asmodeus in my head, like asking me for more, like asking me to push through it, to move it, to alchemize it, to give it to them. And I had the top that I was working with that like is a friend of mine, and wanted to give it to him, and wanted this experience and this exchange. And I really felt this like internal challenge in my core to like fight through it, but to also like allow myself to feel it, and submit to it, and be a part of it. And there was a lot of authority, like personal authority and sovereignty, in my own personal surrender to the pain. And it was this moment where I realized like why and who I am as, as an S type. Well, even though I am a switch who leans S. Like, I'm a switch who leans submissive. I used to be like just straight like S type. But as I've gotten older, I'm a service top. I top if you're my friend and someone needs a top. Like, I love to top if you're like, will you do this for me? Because then I'm like, sure, I'm doing something for you in service to you. Absolutely.
I think
Um,
that's the interesting thing about being a D type is the level of service that I don't think people get when you're enjoying it truly.
Really, yeah. Like I love being in service, and that's like I totally like vibe on that, which is hilarious because I'm in full service to Lucifer. Like I'm any devotional fucking service position I can take with him, I've taken. Like anything I can give him, I give him. Like I worship the ground he walks on, and he doesn't walk on any ground, you know. But if he did, I would, and I think he does in some ways. But truly, like it was, and it wasn't that long ago, and it was just something that like it was what, 3 days ago, perhaps, I don't know. And I just like I walked away from it going like, this is so simple. Like these two things, they coincide so much for me. I don't like they're so interwoven the way that I move energy in my body. And the way I use kink in my life is to physically feel the energy move.
That level of connection to seeing and being a part of that feeling with somebody is I don't know. There's something that is almost undescribable of like
Mhm.
how it feels to have somebody's body responding to you in these ways.
Mhm. Yeah, it's a power exchange, but it's also an energy exchange.
Exactly. And that's the other part I think is one of the crossovers that people I don't think truly understand is how much of an energy exchange it is. It borders on something even I think more so sometimes than just sex.
Oh, yeah, there was no sex involved. None.
Yeah.
None. Not a single ounce of sex was exchanged between me and this top during this scene. Nothing. We didn't even kiss. We There was nothing. Nothing. This was all just psychological. It was physical. There was implements involved. It was power and energy. And that's it. And that's more than enough, trust me, when done properly.
Yeah.
And so, when you're working with the body and the spirit and your desire and your authority and surrender and power, eh, the world is your oyster, whether it's in BDSM or it's in the occult. But I wanted to have this episode as the beginning to, I don't know, like the beginning to something new, an open door to conversations where perhaps we cross multiple bridges here. We're not just going to cross over into BDSM, but just I think anything that's been demonized, I would love for us to just fucking talk about it, to just educate ourselves on it, to not be afraid to look at it. Is it taboo? Let's address it. Is it uncomfortable? Let's address it. If Do we not understand it enough? Great, let's talk about it. Um, if I don't have experience in it or Ryan doesn't have experience in it, we'll have a guest that does. I think in this world, in our world, if we want to evolve at the rate that we should, we need to have exposure. Exposure pops our bubbles. It keeps us alive and awake, and it keeps us present, it keeps us connected, it keeps that bridge between us and the divine and us and a higher consciousness and frequency. It keeps it buzzing, and I want us to fight for that in our community and on our podcast. And remember, consent, communication, and trust. Consent, communication, and trust. Keep that just across all things, and I think at your core you'll be okay.
Yeah, it's definitely a great guiding compass to help you kind of keep yourself from falling in some of the pitfalls and kind of, navigating things with all of your life.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing.
Well, thank you. I love that we had this opportunity, and yeah, I think it just opens the door for maybe not, singular episodes, but even just more openness about that. And when these crossovers happen in intersections of occult work and the kink world, that I think it, just kind of know that that's probably going to come up more.
Probably. Probably. And just a reminder, so my class, we'll put it in the thingy.
I'll put the show notes and all of that, yeah, and
And
the website and
Yeah. And you do have to get vetted. Vetting just it's really simple. It's just so that way everyone's safe in the dungeon. We don't want anyone not safe there, because it is a vulnerable place and people do feel vulnerable being there and vulnerable things happen there. And although, like my
And I
class,
think most any good dungeon, I don't know of any that I would go to that don't have a vetting process.
yes, at
Just to
least
be honest, it's like a common practice in
it
this
is.
space.
Yes, especially nowadays. It didn't used to be. It used to be based on reputation. You had to know someone who knew someone who knew someone and had a certain password and knock on the door to get in. And nowadays it's a little better. It's actual like vetting where we see that you're a real person with a real life on the internet, and we can bet that you're not terrifying. So yeah, but it's really easy and you are not going to get judged, or there's no assumptions made of what and who you are, and no one's going to know your identity. You can make up a fake name. I go by Billy in the scene. Even though my name's Bella, I go by Billy. And you can make up a name. There's no pictures taken, there's nothing. No one will ever know that you came. But I'll be there and I'll get to meet you in person, and hopefully, you'll get to kind of play with these things in your mind and learn something new, and maybe something new about yourself, and also like learn from me in a different way through a different medium. And you might be really surprised at how much you learn, and then can take all that and apply it towards your spiritual practice as well. So hopefully I see you there on May 1st. Anyways, um, well, we'll see you next week on Lunchtime with Demons podcast.
See you next week.